Morning, everyone. Yeah, it's on. Welcome to the September 8th, 2016 session of Prescott, City of Prescott Planning and Zoning Commission. I'm not really going to introduce everybody today because I think everybody knows everybody, except I'd like to welcome Councilman Lamerson, our longtime liaison. Don't you ever get tired of this? Wonderful. Okay, let's get right into approval of the August 11th minutes of the meeting. I'll entertain a motion.
I so move.
Second.
You still have me listed as being in attendance, and I was not.
Right. I noticed that.
I made that change.
I noticed that. See, I never make a correction, and today I was going to make that correction, and you beat me to it. Jeez. Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the minutes? Motion and a second. All those in favor, raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, agenda item RP 16006, revision of plat of Pine Meadows Estates.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, Mr. Lamerson. This project is, as you know, the revision of plat, but before I begin talking about it, I just want to say for the public's benefit that the two projects on the agenda today are, as you know, extremely related. They are both the same properties we're talking about. It's just one is a revision of plat and one is a rezoning, which requires a public hearing. So just to keep that for the benefit of the public, that both items are almost synonymous except for the process that they have to go through to accomplish what the applicants are requesting. The first project is the revision of plat, which, as you know, revisions of plat require Planning and Zoning Commission recommendation to the City Council, and one of the reasons it causes it to be to that level of review is the expansion of a subdivision boundary. In this particular case, the property to the north, this long linear piece to the north, is not within the Los Arcos or Pine Meadows Estates subdivision on Los Arcos. So what, in essence, the resident here in the Pine Meadows Estates subdivision wants to acquire about 2/3 of this property to the north, which would erase this lot line, expand their property into the property they want to acquire from this. But because this is the boundary line between the subdivisions, it has to be a revision of plat for our code process because it's an expansion of the subdivision boundary. If the application is approved, the subdivision boundary, this is the house that exists today in the Pine Meadows Estates. The subdivision boundary would include about 2/3 or so, maybe even 3/4 of this property to the north to be added to this residential piece in the Pine Meadows Estates. The remaining or remnant parcel out in front would remain as its standalone piece that could be developed with a single-family residence under the current zoning of single-family 18. The purpose for the request pardon me, find the right map here. The purpose of the request is that landowners are talking to each other, and the landowners involved recognize that the linear piece to the north of the parcel that wants to acquire and expand the subdivision is full of very scenic rocks, very scenic landscape. And should this property ever develop outside of their subdivision, they wanted to preserve that natural beauty, that natural scenic corridor. So they negotiated with the property owner to the north and agreed to purchase and transfer that portion of the real estate to their existing home And in the process, which is the public hearing today, the rezoning today, change it to natural open space, but still leave the parent parcel down here as single-family 9 where their existing residence is. In effect, what that would do, as you can see by the map, is nearly surround the Pine Meadows Estates subdivision with natural open space, and still leave a marketable piece of single-family development out on the main road to the east, which is kind of how the negotiations went privately between the two property owners. So they see it as a win-win, surround the residents, surround the community with natural open space. This natural open space is owned by different people. The piece to be acquired and added to this parent will be owned privately by this property owner. This piece to the east is owned by the Pine Meadows Estates subdivision. There's a parcel down here, I believe, is owned by the city of Prescott. So it's a whole combination of private-public ownership that would surround this in natural open space and really improve the character of the Pine Meadows Estates subdivision. That's really it in a nutshell for the expansion of the...
Could you tell us what natural open space means?
Natural open
What's involved in
space.
it?
Natural open space is a zoning classification like any other, except in this particular case, it's used for non-development of, it's really for passive recreation. You're not going to see homes, you're not going to see businesses, you're going to see passive recreational activities.
Now, the parcel in front, well, what's it going to be zoned?
This parcel is going to stay the same zoning that exists today, which is single-family 18.
Okay.
This parcel, once it acquires this linear piece of natural open space, will actually have two zoning classifications. The existing SF9, which is there now in the white area, and NOS. So it'll be one parcel. Go back to that other map. This is the site, this is the subdivision plat, revision of plat. It'll be one parcel, as you notice the lines erased here, but this piece to the south will be still remain SF, what was it, 9, and then this will be natural open space.
Well, I have a point on that, and I guess you can tell me if I'm correct or not. But my understanding is once we zone parcel natural open space, then it somewhat functions as a conservation easement here in the city of Prescott, to where in order to change it to a higher density or residential or commercial, you'd have to come back with a supermajority, 6 out of 7 votes in council to change it to a higher amount of use.
It would have to go through another rezoning process all over again. It would have to come back here and to the city council.
But as I understand, it's more than a simple majority in order to change zoning classifications to a higher use. That's...
I'm not aware of that.
Simple majority unless there's a protest.
Okay, simple majority unless there's a protest to the
okay,
rezoning.
well, I'm assuming that, yeah, maybe that's it. So most likely there'd be somebody that would be against a higher,
There's a formula in the statute that says that there's a certain amount of property owners that are to receive notice, file a protest, then that will implicate the supermajority, but rezoning would just be a regular majority.
What's the zoning in that strip now?
SF 18,
The
single
whole
family
thing?
18.
The whole strip? That
Yes,
whole
sir.
northern strip?
That's correct.
Is there a tax advantage to changing zoning to open space?
Any incentives?
Any incentives? I believe that probably. I'm not a tax person. I don't know if I can answer that. I'm sure that it's because it would not be able to be developed with any improvements as far as habitable improvements in businesses. It would be taxed as open space, like unusable park space almost, except it's under private ownership versus public ownership. How it affects the
So
entire
it still
subdivision.
It still stays on the tax rolls.
Yes,
the homeowners association or some group would be responsible for the maintenance and the...
Actually, no, sir. Unless agreed to, this is going to be under private ownership.
One owner.
This will be under private ownership by this property owner.
So that property owner would be responsible for any maintenance that was necessary.
That's correct.
So there's no obligation to the city, there's no obligation to the homeowners association. I think it's a slam dunk.
That's correct.
Yeah, it looks like kind of a win-win thing, doesn't it? I don't see any negatives. Commissioners?
Okay. We've done a lot of cleanup of camps and things throughout that whole Gale Gardner corridor. In the preserve neighborhood, we brought out about 10,000 pounds of camps and trash and all that on behind the Walmart there. The city of Prescott and the rangers and the parks have gone in, and they've cleaned up a lot of camps, getting them out of there. In the case of the city parcel, it is illegal to camp on, as I understand, in city-owned parcels overnight. In the case of private, that's not necessarily the case. I mean, you couldn't open up a campground without a conditional use permit or something on this open space, but they could allow someone to come in and camp out overnight without an issue. And I guess that would be a question whether or not they're aware of that up front happening in that area, or whether they would allow that.
They could camp on their single-family residential property as well. Camping is allowed on any privately owned property for X amount of days. I'm not sure. I think it's 3 days or something, but you are allowed to camp on your own property.
Right.
Anywhere.
You know, the way that we've kind of gotten rid of some of these camps that do become problem is to clean them up first of all, and then in some cases we put trails in there to make them usable, to where then you have normal residential usage in there.
I said, why are we going off into campgrounds? I'm just curious, George. I'm saying we've got a existing lot. The owner is asking us to zone it natural open space, so it's one parcel. So he's got SF9 and 4.5 some odd acres. It's a private piece of property. Whatever the rights are on private property, whether it's you can put a tent up for 3 days. Why opening up this subject on?
Well, from a broader sense, this is kind of becoming the whole homeless situation. Now I understand that CCJ has got a campground up on their parking lot, and I don't think we ought to not discuss it.
I think one other option in this
here, I don't know.
in this particular case, the parcel would also be subject to the Pine Meadows Estates CC&Rs. So even though it could be camped on by city zoning regulations, whatever the CC&Rs would be, I don't know if their own CC&Rs would allow it because we don't regulate them. I did receive a letter of support from the HOA for this project that was included in your packet.
But they would only be subject to the CC&Rs if that owner agrees, has an agreement with the HOA, right?
They're already within the HOA. That the property owner, this property owner, is already within the HOA.
But not the strip.
Not the strip.
So it would have to be his decision,
right,
to join the HOA, right? With that
new strip.
Yeah. Well, I don't have any questions on it. Are we in a position to act on this today, on both?
Yes, sir.
Both the...
we have to officially keep the other one separate because it's a public hearing.
I understand. And it's actually a rezoning, too.
Yes, sir, it is.
Item 2. Okay, anybody in the public like to speak to this? No? Okay. Why don't we hear from the applicant? Is he here?
That would be me.
Okay.
I'm Lynn Liu.
Okay, I need you to come up to the microphone, give your name and address, and give us
Might
your
not
spiel.
have anything to say.
Really not much to say, yeah?
Well, I'm Lynn Liu, L-E-U. I now live at 1136 Country Club Drive. I formerly owned the parcel within yes, that parcel. And I currently own the whole 5-acre strip. And I wanted to I lived there for 10 years, and I was involved in creating the natural open space on the other side, and I wanted to do the right thing with this property, and the current owner did too. They're beautiful rocks, and we wanted to preserve it as open space for everyone's benefit. So I will be keeping the front acre and selling that separately, but I think this is an everybody wins situation.
Sounds like it. I wish there were a lot more like you in this city.
Thank you.
Especially with an open pocketbook that was willing to do this. This is terrific. Great. Okay, questions, commissioners? No? I think we're good.
I just have one small question. Are you going to keep that strip parcel outside of the HOA, or are you going to incorporate it into the HOA?
Stripped parcel. No, I'm planning to sell that independently. The parcel in the front there.
I'm sorry, I meant the one to the east of that, right there. The part that we're making NOS. Is that going to stay outside of the association, or is that going to go into the homeowners association?
Rod Smith, who currently owns, can you show that, the house, yeah, who's purchasing that property, really would know. I don't know technically whether it becomes part of the homeowners association, but it does. My understanding, Frank, was that it does become part of Pine Meadows. That's the other.
It becomes part of the Pine Meadows. It becomes part of Pine Meadows Estates, whether that automatically absorbs it into the HOA. It's up to the
It's
however
one
the
lot,
CCRs.
so it's got to be, if the parcel that's marked 11517, and you're adding it to it, doing away with the lot line that separates the two, it becomes
Then
one
it becomes
parcel.
one lot.
Then it
Becomes
seems like
one
it becomes-
parcel, so it's absorbed into the
So it's
HOA.
absorbed into
That
the
was my
HOA.
understanding,
And if
yeah.
that's parcel's part of the subdivision, then
Right.
it becomes part of the subdivision.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it runs with the land.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, commissioners, anybody? Now, this is not a public hearing item. Don't have to close it.
No, sir, this is
We
just
could
the
just go ahead and vote on a
revision of plat.
revision of plat. Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I don't see one in here, but I'll make one up.
Make one up.
Move to approve or recommend to council the agenda item RP 16-006, revision to the plat of the Pine Meadows Estates Unit Number 2 subdivision to expand the boundary of Lot 15 by 4.17 acres and the existing zoning in single family is PAD Family 9. Zoning proposal, the square foot 9 acres plus natural open space on parcel 151700, is that 6B or whatever? 8B. This will help, thank you, glasses. Property owner Smith, residential trust acreage consisting of 1.53 acres.
Second.
And I don't know whether I'm right or wrong, but there wasn't a recommended.
Oh, that's okay. Basically, you're recommending
Never
to
opened a
approve
public hearing.
Well, I'm recommending to
RP
approve acquiring it
16-006.
in and bringing it in, and then becomes one parcel, and then he's going to designate, and we're changing the zoning on the back piece.
Okay, I have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Nope. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Say
Aye.
Aye, okay. RP 16-006 approved. Now we'll discuss agenda item, the rezoning for the same property, 16-002.
Mr. Chairman, based on how closely they were related, I don't know that there's any other information I can add. I kind of covered both, but if the rezoning were to occur and be your recommendation to the city council, this parcel would still stay SF9 as I'm writing on it now, and then the green space would become NOS. So the rezoning is the NOS.
Okay. We can act on this today?
Yes, sir. After public comment and
Okay.
questions, yes.
All right, anybody in the public like to speak to this? No? Well, then I'll close the public hearing. I'll entertain a motion, commissioners.
Move to approve agenda item RZ 16-002 for the rezoning of the property.
Second.
I have a motion second. Any discussion?
Did we get Phil? How we do that?
How do we do that? Who?
You guys did it at the same time?
Toss a coin.
Okay.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? No? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Say aye. Aye. Okay, the rezone is approved to pass on to the city council. Thank you, everyone. Any additional items?
Just one follow-up from last meeting with the Antelope Crossing subdivision plat. One of the main discussions was the open space reduction request by the applicant from 25%, I believe it was down to like 17 to 18%. We did receive, the commission did provide a unanimous recommendation for the members that were present that day, but there was significant discussion about the quantity of open space
And setbacks.
and setbacks. Now but the applicant, we're going to city council with this next week on the 13th for their approval of the preliminary plat or consideration of the preliminary plat. But in response to your discussion, this southern piece with a little trail loop in the bottom, shown here on the plat, was added to the subdivision. It was initially excluded from the subdivision. They have now added it to the preliminary plat. Will be open space with a little loop trail that you see here, which brings it from 17% open space out of the required 25 to 22% out of the required 25.
Well, good.
So I wanted to bring that up to you.
Sure.
And that's in a more detailed focus. Here it is here, this triangle, basically.
Great.
Thank you, George. You were the ones that wanted a little more connectivity with those trails.
Yep.
I want to thank the property owners for taking those suggestions and incorporating it into their proposal.
Yeah, that's a good thing. Like to see that.
Just wanted to give you that FYI.
Great. And that'll all go on to the city council without any more action from us? Those changes?
Correct. After this, it goes to city council for preliminary plat, and then they'll need to do all their civil plans, and would go back to the city council on a future date for final plat.
Okay. Very good. Anything else? Today? No? We're adjourned. We're adjourned.
I lost my bet. Yeah. All right, Mr. Jim.